Thank you. So the two colleagues of mine talked about the key objectives for the assessment, and they are the same with us. I will try as much as possible to skip areas that have been emphasized already. But for me, I wanted to talk about the first objective. So about three of them. The first one is basically Malawi. I think for you that may be familiar with Africa, is basically in the SADC, that's the Southern Africa region. And it's a developing country. And, the health system faces quite a lot of challenges. And 85% of the population are predominantly rural, which means that most of the health service delivery areas are actually in the rural areas. So getting information across to the decision making places has been a key, task, and has been at the center, of efforts to strengthen the health information systems. But the issue of, tracking how efforts that are implemented by various partners are changing, the environment, that has been a challenge. So that's why, the country opted for the SOCI to try to pull together, the various sources of information to key, domains that can easily be tracked. So that's basically the first objective. The second one, sorry, it's three there, but it has also, helped us to sort of set benchmarks. I must say that that, of course, leads to us coming up with a roadmap that informs the, the strategic documents that we have worked on. This year in 2023, the ministry has just launched the first strategic plan. And along that, a number of, sub-strategies have been in the process of being revised and developed. And so the SOCI came at the right time. I'll skip this slide. Alimo already talked about this. This is where we focused, the SOCI assessment on HIS, really focusing on issues of leadership and governance, management workforce, ICT infrastructure, standards and interoperability, and the data quality and use. So let me go to the following slide. I need to talk about, the methodology. So again, here, the issue was really to start with the government buy-in. As I already said, the government and the Ministry of Health inclusive were at a stage where they were, starting to implement new strategies. Having, completed the implementation of the previous health sector strategy in 2022. So the SOCI process for us started, the discussion started in 2021 on developing the, the new strategies, and they were looking for, tools that can help them to assess, health system areas, including the health information systems. And this is where the SOCI assessment came in. So we had to link with the key leadership teams in the ministry. And for us, that included what we call the Department of Planning and Policy, which is in the is a key department within the Ministry of Health. And then there is also the Division of Digital Health and Department of Quality Management, and also the Central Monitoring and Evaluation Division. So these are the key departments that we worked with. I must say that we also worked with a department outside the ministry, and that is the department that coordinates overall digitalization across the government. Once that buy-in and consensus was achieved, we presented, the methodology and the scope of the SOCI to the Ministry of Health Monitoring and Evaluation and Health Information Systems Technical Working Group. This is a grouping of stakeholders that support health information systems and monitoring and evaluation. And they discussed the scope, looked at the recommended scope, looked at what we already had in the country, and based on that, we concretized the scope that needed to be followed. And the second thing was to pull together all the reference documents. As you heard earlier on, Alimo emphasized on the need to make sure that every decision, every scoring must be based on the documentation. So we had to pull together all the reference documents in one place. And then we discussed and agreed upon the key, HIS stakeholders. These included the donors and the Ministry of Health departments, other government agencies outside the Ministry of Health, and the programs for the ministry. All these were part of the stakeholders that were involved in the process, especially in the stakeholder engagement. And then we had the individuals, experts, HIS experts that reviewed the key documents based on the key domains to really establish where we are. And after that, we held a stakeholder workshop. Now, during the workshop, most of the people that were there were actually experts in one or two of the domains. And based on the guidelines, the SOCI toolkit, we looked at all the key domains, components and subcomponents, looking at the questions and going to the documentation and then scoring where we are. We had to do, after the initial scoring, we had to assign another layer to do validation and also provide their scores, just to make sure that we were being objective. And after that, then we came up with the final scores that gave us the status of where we were. And they were also, based on that, aspirations in terms of the targets that we wanted to achieve. They were also established by the same, groups. This workshop, I'll also skip this slide, okay, because Alimo already highlighted on this one, but I wanted to emphasize the fact that the process was really led by the Ministry of Health, and the workshop was officiated by the Director of Planning and the Policy Development, and this is I would say a third high-ranking official in the Ministry of Health, and we had participation from the WHO, the UN, and the projects and programs of USAID and CDC and other technical partners that have been involved in the HIS work. And the director linked that process to the overall, health sector strategic planning that was happening in the ministry and also in the area of health information systems. Quickly, I hope you can see this. This is basically the overall results according to the domains. So the leadership and governance was around 3.7 because there've been a lot of effort on strategic planning. And at that point, we had a strategy which had expired, but of course, most of the key areas in there were still relevant. On issues of data quality and use, you can see the score there. There have been some efforts to improve use, but it has largely been at the national level. There were just efforts going to the district and health facilities, and so some work was happening there. The key gaps were observed on, interoperability and the IT infrastructure. I did highlight at the beginning that we are a developing country, and so in terms of technology infrastructure, it's an area where investments are still required, and so too the health information systems, area is an area that requires still a lot of investments. Although some basic components of interoperability standards as well as infrastructure have been put up, but there is still gaps that need to be implemented, to be filled. This slide just shows you what participants and the experts that were looking at the domains and the components and the subdomains, found, and also what they felt we could achieve, and we're looking at a period of 5 years. So we, having established where we were, there was a roadmap that has been developed, and there is a draft health information systems strategy. The strategy is for 10 years, but what this process was looking at, we're envisioning achieving these results in 5 years and completing another comprehensive SOCI assessment, apart from the regular reviews that happen around the domains, the components, and the sub-components. And then I can skip these details of what was found and the evidence that was there, and then I will focus on how we are using these results. Oh, sorry. Okay, so yeah, how we are using these results. The first is that, being a developing country, the health sector depends a lot on, donor support, and most of the major donors had their major grants and programs coming to an end around 2022. There was a lot of planning, specifically for the Global Fund, for instance. The round of grants, which starts in 2024, needed a lot of planning, not only on disease areas, but also in health system areas, including health information systems. And then we had the Gavi and also the USAID, that has been funding, some areas in health information systems. So the results of the SOCI have been very instrumental, in highlighting gaps that these key donors should focus on, and making sure that resources are allocated to those priority areas. The second, on the government side, the second use is the strategic planning that has happened alongside the health sector strategic plan. So the health information systems strategy has just been drafted. It is, I would say, 100% informed by the SOCI assessment that happened. And the second use is that we now have clear, benchmarks and milestones based on the gaps that have been included in that strategy. And so on a regular basis, using the government structures that are there, we look at, those efforts around, the benchmarks and the outputs that need to be implemented by different partners. So we do these through the structures that are called, technical working groups. So we have the monitoring, evaluation, and health information technical working group, and then we have the digital health technical working groups. So all these, focus on discuss progress that is being made on a regular basis. They meet on quarterly basis, and every quarter, what happens is, partners make presentations on their contributions, to the outputs of the strategy, which were actually identified by the SOCI assessment. And because most donors don't, they would plan in the long term, maybe 5 years, but they allocate resources, on annual basis. For instance, the USAID would allocate on annual basis. PEPFAR, PMI, they do that. Even the UN, they also do that. And Global Fund, this time around, they have allocated resources for about 3 years, but only on a regular basis, annually, they do, reallocate these resources. And so too, government, has new budgets every year. So this strategy based on the SOCI really helps us to focus those investments around the gaps, and constantly looking at what has been achieved, what remains to be done, and then ensuring that we don't, stray going into other areas, but focusing on those priorities. So this is how we are using the SOCI assessment that we completed in Malawi. I think this is the last slide. Thank you for your attention.